Bicycle Ferry. We're visiting a small lakeside pier where a flat wooden raft carries cyclists across a wide, glassy lake. You'll roll your bicycle up a low ramp, lean it against a rail, and drift over still water while shoreline trees, birds, and quiet passengers keep you company. The morning begins cool and pale at the edge of the town's park, where the path widens and curves towards the water. Painted arrows on the pavement point to a low pier with timber planks the colour of tea. A hand-painted sign on a post reads, "Bicycle Ferry, every half hour." The letters brushed in navy blue and edged with a simple wave. You can see the raft already tied up to rubber bumpers, its deck broad and square, edged with a knee-high rail of galvanized pipe. The surface shows a scuff of old tire marks and a shine where many shoes have stood waiting. Beyond the pier, the lake spreads out like a pane of glass left on a workbench, weightless and ready to be lifted. Pines and cedars draw a dark collar along the far shore. A pair of white buoys bob near the mooring, each one tethered by a rope that dips into the water in a quiet loop. The air smells faintly of wet wood, chain oil, and something mineral from the lake bed. A woman in a yellow cap stands by a small kiosk at the foot of the pier, taking coins and handing out little cardboard tickets. She has a stamp shaped like a tiny wheel that she presses on each ticket with a quick, soft thump. "Ramp steady, roll on slow," she says in a conversational tone that carries just far enough. The ramp is a thick plank hinged to the pier, its edge painted with a strip of reflective tape that catches the daylight. When you push your bicycle forward, the tires thrum lightly over the boards, the sound thin and pleasing, like a muted drum. A boy with a bell on his handlebar follows at a careful distance, the bell chiming once by accident as the wheel turns. Two friends arrive together with touring panniers that look like bright red rectangles, and they speak softly about sandwiches while checking their straps. A dog in a soft harness pads beside its owner and sits where the deck meets the rail, nose forward, eyes following the silver skin of the lake. The ferryman wears a navy knit sweater with the elbows patched in darker cloth. and his hands are clean, but lined at the knuckles. He moves with practiced care, stepping from cleat to loosen the dock lines. One, then the other, coiling each rope into a neat sleeping spiral at his feet. A wooden tiller rises from the stern like a short tree branch, and beside it sits a small control box with a key, a toggle, and a red knob. The raft's motor hums once, tests itself, and falls quiet again. The ferryman points with 2 fingers to the deck's bicycle hooks, simple steel loops with rubber sleeves, and people lean their bikes by the rail, looping a bungee around a hook with the ease of repetition. Stand on the outer edge if you like the breeze, he says. Stand near the center if you like steady feet. He lifts a pole with an orange flag at the tip and gives the pier attendant a nod. The attendant returns the nod and touches the brim of her cap with 1 finger, as if saluting the day. Departure is slow enough to watch in detail. The ramp is lifted by a simple pulley, the rope passing over a small wheel that squeaks once and then settles. The raft shivers as the motor turns, and a gentle V appears in the water where the front edge pushes it aside. The pier slides backward, plank by plank, as if the ferry were pulling the shoreline away by an invisible thread. Ripples reach towards the rocks near the park's edge and fold themselves under a stone the size of a melon, then disappear. A cormorant perched on a post spreads its wings without moving any other part of its body. The feathers like small dark blades. The dog by the rail lifts its nose and closes its eyes, measuring the little changes in air and lake smell. The ferryman leans on the tiller and watches the current out of habit, though the lake lies as flat as a sheet of brushed metal. The raft finds its path straight down an invisible lane, marked only by subtle changes of light. The lake widens as you leave the park behind, and the surface shows faint, long stripes where overnight breezes passed and then died. On one side, reeds lean out from a shoal and make a stitching sound as the water touches them. Farther out, The colour changes from pale green to a deeper blue-grey, and the reflection of the opposite trees sharpens until their trunks look like pencils dipped halfway in ink. A loon surfaces at a small distance, its eyes red like a dot of varnish, then tips forward and disappears again, leaving only a round, closing ring. Somewhere to the north, an engine coughs once, then resumes a calm puttering, too far to do more than thicken the silence a shade. The sun climbs a finger's width and outlines the nearest hills with a pale yellow line. Not yet warm but steady. On the deck, a rider removes the glove and runs a thumb along the chain of her bicycle. Not to clean it, not to adjust, only to recognize the familiar texture. Several passengers move a little closer to the rail, and the deck responds with small clicks from the screws sunk in pairs down each plank. Halfway across, a small skiff appears from behind a spit of land, its hull painted green and rubbed to a friendly dullness by years of use. Two people sit low in it, one holding a fishing rod, the other keeping an oar on the gunwale as a brace. Their cooler is the bright marine blue you see at every lake in summer, and a net lies in the boat like a grey curve of handwriting. The ferryman lifts his flag, and the skiff answers by dipping its oar twice. Nothing more needs to be said. The distances and the water carry the message. A heron stands on the spit like a folded umbrella with legs, and when it moves, it does so in steps that seem measured on a ruler. A series of small bubbles pops near the raft's bow, and a soft laugh passes among the passengers, as if the lake itself made a joke and then hid. The air changes temperature by a degree or two and brings the clean smell of open water. Somewhere under the deck, the motor alters its tone as the ferryman trims speed for a patch of floating needles and a single sun-bleached leaf. You look down through the gaps between planks, where the boards are set just far enough apart to let spilled water drain. The lake's face presses up in those narrow rectangles, like glass slid into a frame. Small shining beetles skate in quick, straight lines, their feet dimpling the skin of the water with paired dots that appear and vanish. A dragonfly crosses the bow at chest height, its body the exact green of new shoots, wings moving in a brisk blur, and then stopping as it perches on the rope coil. It rests there without fear, while the rope softly lifts and falls with the raft's motion. A woman with a wicker basket, its lid fastened by leather tabs, adjusts it so it won't bump a pedal. The boy with the bell kneels to trace with a finger the faint outline of a knot in the deck. A knot that looks like a small whirlpool held still in wood. No one speaks loudly. They're speaking, but it's a kind that keeps company with quiet instead of pushing it away. The ferryman watches the dragonfly with a glance, as if counting it among his regulars. The raft has a narrow cabin the size of a closet, set forward of the tiller. Just enough room for a thermos shelf, a first aid box, and a laminated chart of the lake. The chart is printed in blues, with thin numbers that mark the depths in feet. And the shape of the shoreline looks like a puzzle piece you almost recognize. The thermos shelf holds 2 cups with chipped rims and a tin of tea bags folded shut with a paperclip. A square window lets you see the lake drawn flat behind the glass, in a way that makes the calm even calmer. The ferryman opens the cabin and checks a small ledger where he marks each crossing with a short pencil whose eraser is almost gone. He notes the time and the number of riders with the compact handwriting of someone who values neatness, but not for its own sake. Above the ledger, a nail holds a length of twine with a brass whistle tied to it. The whistle looks old and is likely used rarely. He shuts the door gently, a motion practiced 100 times a week, and the latch falls with a soft tin click. On the horizon, the opposite dock comes into view. No more than a dark bar at first, then a distinct line of posts, and finally the details of a low shed and a bench. The bench faces the water and is worn smooth in the middle, where most people prefer to sit. A mountain rises beyond the trees, with a patch of exposed granite that shines like a pale coin. Near the dock, a gull makes a precise landing on a piling by letting its wings tilt in small fractions. Feet extended like rubbery hooks. The passengers adjust their grips on the rail in a subtle shared motion, the way bodies prepare for a step without thinking. The dog stands and wags once, the tail making a single cheerful thump on the deck. The ferryman taps the throttle, and the motor replies by receding in tone until the raft glides on momentum. Ropes stand ready on their cleats, like sentences that will soon be spoken again. Before arrival, the raft passes a patch of lilies, where round leaves lie flat as plates, each with a bead of water pooled in a small depression near the center. A frog the color of cooked peas sits on one, skin shining and eyes high. And when the motorless glide brings the raft too close, the frog pushes off with a spring so clean you can see each joint work in order. A turtle raises its head near another leaf and then tucks it away with unhurried dignity. A reed bends under the weight of a beetle no bigger than a fingernail, and then straightens when the beetle lifts off, leaving only a ring on the water that expands until it reaches a lily rim and breaks. People watch these small actions with that simple patience which shows up without being called when there is nothing to hurry. The air carries a sweetness from the lilies that most noses wouldn't name, but recognize immediately. Somewhere a woodpecker taps 4 times and pauses as if counting, then taps again. The raft continues its line, and the lilies go by with their quiet green faces turned up to the sky. The landing comes with a collection of soft, careful sounds. The ferryman lets the bow kiss the bumper with a gentle, rubbery sigh. He throws the first line around the mooring cleat and pulls once. Hands low, rope rasping lightly against itself. A stanchion taps the dock, then rests. The ramp drops in a slow arc, and the pulley gives its single obliging squeak. The dog looks to its person for permission and is told, "Wait," which it does, sitting again with patience that seems part of the dock itself. On shore, a man in a green jacket finishes tying his shoes and stands, his bicycle leaning against his hip like a quiet friend. The passengers shift forward as a group, but not crowded, and the ferryman raises a palm politely until the rope is snug and the ramp's foot is set flat. Riders disembark one by one, hands steady on their bars, front wheels rolling over the seam between ramp and shore. The touring friends go first, panniers clearing the rail by an inch. The boy's bell gives another accidental chime that makes the gull on the post turn its head and look, as if he were an official monitoring good behavior. The woman with the wicker basket steps carefully so the lid doesn't knock, and when she reaches the dock, she breathes in and smiles, for no reason that requires naming. The dog, finally released, steps down and then stops again, choosing to match its pace to the person rather than run. The ferryman keeps his eye on the rear corner where the deck meets the bumper, and with a toe he nuzzles the raft 2 inches closer, just because he likes things lined up. Back in 20, he tells the attendant, who has walked down from the shed with a clipboard and a pencil tucked behind one ear. You roll up the dock and pause at the crest, where the boards give way to a smooth path worn pale by many tires. On this shore, the trees begin almost at once, their trunks straight as dowels, their bark carrying watermarks in vertical strips from last night's fog. A little kiosk holds a pump, a map, and a small box of chain links for anyone who needs a spare, offered for a coin or a thank you. In the shade, a man and a girl practice taking a wheel off and putting it on again, counting aloud the steps. Quick release, lift, align, tighten. The girl's thumbs get smudged, and she wipes them on a rag with a look of accomplishment that needs no audience. A woman in a blue windbreaker eats a hard-boiled egg and sprinkles salt from a twist of paper, brushing a few grains from her lap. A laminated card on the kiosk asks riders to ring once when approaching pedestrians on the path. And the rule fits the day, because it is both simple and kind. Nearby, a tiny brown bird hops along the top rail of the fence, pecking once at a spider thread, and then flying into the soft green light. Later, you will take this same fairy back, or not. The lake will allow either choice without comment. For now, you lean the bike on its kickstand and sit on the bench to drink water and watch the raft depart for the return crossing. The deck looks briefly empty, and then the shapes of new riders resolve as they roll on, lean, and settle. The ferryman repeats his practiced motions, and the raft pushes a wedge into the lake that heels over as soon as it passes. The mountain holds its bright patch, and the clouds, few and well spaced, cast moving, gentle shadows that do nothing but show time in motion. A loon calls once, the sound travelling farther than you would have guessed. A clean line that sets a small muscle under your ear humming. The raft becomes a dark stamp against the light, and then a shape again, and then a raft you know too well to watch closely. The lake keeps its balance without effort. Near midday, the glassiness turns to a faint ripple as a breeze makes a tidy pattern that runs parallel to the opposite shore. A picnic table at the edge of the trees collects a group of riders who lay out bread, cheese, and sliced cucumbers. Someone produces a knife with a wooden handle and cuts the cucumber on a folded paper, the knife making a serviceable ticking sound against the tabletop. A man pumps up his rear tire with a compact pump that works like a toy that does the job, and he checks pressure with a thumb that knows what 70 feels like. A pair of swallows chase each other near the dock, their flight tight and head high, turning with clean angles as if their air were laid out in lanes. The attendant in the yellow cap sits on the kiosk step and writes something in a little notebook that might be totals, might be a list for the store, might be a note for someone at home. The dog is offered a stainless bowl of water and drinks half, then lies on the shaded part of the deck with its chin on its paws. The day carries on without needing anyone's approval, and everyone senses this and relaxes into it. When you ride again, it's along a path that tracks the shore, pine needles under the tires making a soft sketching sound. The lake appears and disappears through the trees, like a mirror held up at intervals. You pass a switchback where a family pauses to adjust a helmet and fix a shoelace. The small jobs that make the larger trip work smoothly. A wooden mile marker stands at the corner, with the number burned into it in stove-black digits. A red-winged blackbird dips from a cattail to a new perch and shows the bright shoulder that gives its name. The air over the path is cooler in low spots and warmer where the sun slides in, and your skin registers the changes without needing to label them. A brown moth flees the front tire with an uncertain path that still succeeds perfectly. When the trees thin and the lake opens again, it's as if the world takes a step back to let you see the whole shape. By afternoon, the ferry has become part of the rhythm of the shore. Arrive, board, cross, arrive, repeat. People time their rides to it without watching the clock, calibrating by the way the raft approaches, or by the faint motor note you can hear if you hold still. The ferryman jokes once with a pair of teenagers about drafting behind the raft for extra speed, and they laugh and promise to try it someday. A woman unlocks a small silver bell from her handlebar and adjusts its clamp, spinning it in place to find the exact angle where the striker clears. Then rings it once to test. A clean ring that seems to make the air brighter. The boy from the morning returns with a different sticker on his frame. His bell's still unpredictable, but part of him now, like a new cadence learned on a hill. The attendant's stamp leaves more wheel marks on more tickets, and the paper stack in the kiosk grows thinner. There is no rush, but there is movement, and the lake accepts it all as lightly as if it were one more breeze.